to talk about mental health this morning. We're taking a look at exactly what has to go into funding mental health and why we're unable to get the funds we need to support these this sector, particularly from the state. My guest this morning is from the Human Rights Advocacy Center. Wendy Yabe is here. Good morning once again.
Good morning.
And let's start the conversation this way. Before we even start, the difficulty in getting these camps closed has always been in the news. Several governments have made attempts to get these alleged witches camp closed, but some are still there, and these women, unfortunate ones and young ones, are in this quagmire. Now, Stanley Blay was at Patinga, one of the camps, and he has this report.
For decades, they have been isolated. Northern region has 5 witch camps, and the Gushegu district alone has 2. The Patinga camp has 40 alleged witches. Some live here with their relatives. Having been attacked, humiliated, and stigmatized, they have moved here to seek refuge. Many more are thrown out by the communities, while others have to run for crimes they have not committed.
My child slept and dreamed about me and said I came to her in the night. So that was all. He said I'm going to kill him. So because of that, they drove me away.
Another corroborated their story.
A child died, and then we all even went to the funeral. So the following day, the child fathers came to and told my husband that I killed the child.
Before the alleged witches are admitted, rituals to exorcise the spirits in them are performed. This is the caretaker's job.
When you brought your person here, I only charge only small amount, like 100 Ghana cedis, because you brought her and say she's a witch or she's very bad. So I have to use that of your money and then bath her so that she will become neat and then she will no more be a bad person again.
This, however, does not end stigmatization. The camp is not a good place for school-going children.
If me and my classmate fight, they are insulting me that my parents are witch chiefs. I'm not feeling happy because of that.
For alleged witches, integration is what they look forward to.
My child cannot come back for me unless the community people, they decide and tell my son that go and bring your mother. Now we will accept your mother.
About 85% of people who live at the camp are aged and can barely feed themselves.
For the feeding, they are suffering. They don't get food. So we told our district assembly to come to our aid. But after now, they haven't looked upon us.
Hunger is therefore rife. Some have not had food for close to 2 months.
Because of my other colleagues who are staying here, normally when I short of food, they normally provide me some food.
The Gushegu District Chief Executive, Issa Musa, disclosed the assembly will now include the needs of the camp in their plans.
Sometimes we even involve them when we want to do budget listing. We ask them to come, they'll come and we'll listen to them. Yeah, they have been coming here. We sometimes, get some materials, go there and some items and distribute it to them. But maybe because of the word alleged, there are some people who don't even want to go near them.
The assembly, however, wants camps closed. A non-governmental organization, Songtaba, is pushing for alleged witches camps to be closed.
Witchcraft accusation has been with us in the northern region. And sometimes I can say it's like seasonal. Seasonal because with the absence of CSM in the region, we see more accusation. And for me, I would say that it is the belief that when there's a sudden discomfort in the community, and CSM can cause that. And usually when that happens, they are looking for some old woman to accuse.
Executive Director of Songtaba, Lamnatu Adam, wants government to increase policies to safeguard the vulnerable.
It's enshrined in our constitution all the right violations are there, even though we do not have a particular article in any policy about witchcraft accusation. But then there are issues of assault, there are issues if there's a property damage, there's where, a woman can get redress for it. But then what government has not been able to do is ensuring that at the rural areas, women who are accused are protected. And sometimes the frustration lies in the person who is accused making so much effort to get redress. And yet, if it is a woman, she's already economically vulnerable, to be following up on this police issue.
Stakeholders want the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection to go to the rescue of these alleged witches.
All right, now let's join Lamnatu Adam, the Executive Director of Songtaba. She just joined me on the phone. Good morning, Madam. Grateful for your time. Now, why is it difficult to close down these camps?
Good morning, and good morning to our listeners. You notice that witchcraft accusation is a long-term phenomenon that we are living with. And as the story carries, Northern Region alone, is playing host to about 5 camps of where women who are frail and very weak, aged between 60 to 90 years, are kept in these camps. And because there's a perceived belief that witchcraft is used to cause harm, it still makes people to banish women to these camps. And so therefore we need to work with communities to accept that it's not every misfortune that befalls the community that is as a result of witchcraft.
I see, but why is it difficult? Why are we unable? Why are the local assemblies unable to close down these camps?
Because there's a deep-seated belief in witchcraft, And because of this belief, people are cautious about it. It is enough for a chief to say that I cannot allow this woman to stay with us, because if that happens, all the young men who are catering for this community will leave. And so because of these dynamics that surrounds the belief in witchcraft, it makes it difficult for the camps to be closed. However, we are pushing for a gradual, reintegration of these women into their communities.
You're suggesting that there is resistance at the local level to close down the camps?
Yes. Because they see the camp as a safe haven where these women should go and get themselves ostracized, so that they are cleansed of their spirits. And so therefore, even for fear of being lynched, for fear of stigmatization, women would prefer to run to the camp, so that they get safe.
All right. I'm grateful for your time with that. She is the Executive Director of Songtaba, Lamnatu Adam there. Now to my earlier conversation on mental health. My guest this morning from the Human Rights Advocacy Center, Wendy Abbey, is here. Wendy, good morning once again. Now, so let's talk about this issue, funding for mental health. Why is it a difficult thing to do? We don't care about our unfortunate ones?
Thank you very much. I suppose it is difficult because the subject on mental health actually comes with a lot of responsibility, talking about mental health. And people's response, even outside of policy, when it comes to community response to mental health, is one thing that people actually shy away from. So pretty much you have a community or society that shies away from talking about mental health, and you have that translated into decisions, policy decisions regarding the mental health in general. So it is not a popular topic to talk about mental health financing in the context of how it impacts development in general. We are not able to draw the lines to see that the well-being, the mental well-being of Ghanaians has a direct relationship or impact on our levels of development.
I see.
We actually do not have that in mind when we talk about mental health. We seem to think about it as a subject that perhaps is for the vulnerable.
I see. But so is that a suggestion that perhaps stakeholders have not done enough to create that awareness?
A lot of work is being done, but the question is who is actually doing the work. There are stakeholders who are doing the work, civil society organizations talking about the subject, but when it comes to policy makers, decision makers taking a bold step to actually make the subject popular and actually take the right step in terms of law, in terms of financing, in terms of implementation of current legislature, then there is a problem.
So even despite the fact that there's an authority in place now, the Mental Health Authority, it does not give it that importance, that key feature of our development effort. Is that it?
It does in a certain way, because it talks about the institutional response to mental health, that there's a whole agency dedicated to that. So it talks about the response, a particular institutional response, and even policy-wise. Backing that, you have the law. But beyond that, we're talking about having real results on the ground where policy or institutional responses are implemented in a way that directly impacts the lives of people.
It doesn't come with the financing. The authority's setup does not come with the financing?
Exactly. So you have an authority that is known, but then it can do very little because the resources aren't dedicated as much to the work of the Mental Health Authority.
How do we fix it? Is it possible to fix it?
It is very possible.
So how do we do it?
We are calling for a sustainable way of financing, where government has to ring-fence mental health funding. We're looking at having a legislative instrument where government will be specific about dedicating a particular amount or particular percentage of budget spending regarding mental health, and then also looking at how the mental health fund as stipulated in the Mental Health Authority can be resourced. This is one of the ways you can look at actually having sustainable funding. You know that at the end of the day, there's an amount coming from somewhere. It is backed by law. There's a particular percentage that is dedicated from the purse of government to mental health.
So is this advocacy hitting the right spot?
We believe the government is a listening government. So as we do the talking and do the advocacy, we believe they are listening. Recently, there was a request that was made for mental health. We didn't get even 1% of the 43 million.
That was allocated
little over. That was exactly. So we are hoping that we go beyond not getting just less than 1% of a request made. I mean, basically, this allocation goes to the psychiatric hospitals. Come to think of a community response. So we talk about the community mental health response. What funding is going in there? And if you don't take care, we are actually sitting on a time bomb. We are currently working on research that is going. We are going to communities, talking to them on mental health, and the way the response is coming from alternative practitioners. So you have communities that would actually walk into prayer camps, walk into traditional mental health healing centers, seek for help because the antipsychotic medications are not there. You don't have enough community psychiatric nurses who are resourced to move into communities to provide the needed support. So we are actually sitting on a time bomb. Outside of Accra, perhaps you'll be shocked at seeing persons with mental disorders every corner. every corner we turn to, and it's very critical.
And yeah, we don't have the funding to get them off and put them in a proper
exactly. And families are actually breaking down as a result of this lack of or inadequate attention given to mental health financing.
Wendy, I'm grateful for your time with us. She's Wendy Abbey from the Human Rights Advocacy Center. They're talking to me on mental health. This is New Day. Stay with